I knew something was off the second the badge scanner blinked red instead of green. I'd stayed late again, past 9, maybe 9:30, finishing Q4 ops metrics because I actually give a damn, unlike the interns who clock out at 5 on the dot with spreadsheets still breathing errors. The office was dead quiet, except for the hum of server racks and the flicker of overhead fluorescence that made everything feel like a scene out of some documentary about forgotten geniuses. I liked it that way. No small talk, no Slack pings, just me, the data, and the systems I'd spent 6 years building from the bones up. But when I tapped my badge to log in and nothing happened, not just slow, not just laggy, but nothing, my stomach twisted. I tried again. Still red. Like I was a stranger in a place I'd basically kept breathing since before half the VPs even had their first divorces. I walked back to my desk and opened the admin panel on a spare terminal. My profile was gone. Not disabled, not restricted, gone. Not even a placeholder stub in the access registry. No credentials, no escalation path. It was like I'd never existed. That's when I knew this wasn't a glitch. This was a decision. Hey, quick pause while you're still here. If you're into stories like this and you're one of the 97% listening without subscribing, please hit that button and give the video a like. It really helps our team keep bringing you these wild, true tales. Thanks for supporting us. Now back to it. I didn't panic. Panic is for amateurs and interns who forget to label their merge branches. I just sat there a minute, heart racing but breath slow. I opened my personal laptop, connected to the guest Wi-Fi, intentionally crippled for bandwidth but still open, and ran a protocol I'd quietly built years ago. A passive ghost tracker, non-intrusive. It doesn't modify, doesn't trigger alerts. It just watches. Who's accessing what, when, and from where. I designed it after a VP tried pinning a config screw-up on me and failed. I never shut it down, just made it better, hidden, like a shadow in the wiring. And now, that shadow blinked awake. I walked out without saying a word. No reason to cause noise yet. Let them enjoy their silence, let them believe they'd gotten away with it. But I knew better, because the systems I built weren't just modular, they were verified. Everything at Farroncore was built on trust, but validated through a dual auth backbone I'd written myself. One key was theirs. The other? Mine. And I had just watched them delete mine like it didn't matter. They thought removing me would make the system theirs. They forgot who actually wrote it. I got to the building before sunrise. The sky was still that steel gray color, like the whole world hadn't decided yet if it was going to fall apart or keep it together. No warning emails, no change of access notice, nothing from IT, nothing from HR. Just the dull thud of the front doors unlocking with the lobby code I still remembered from 6 years ago. I half expected security to stop me, but the guy at the desk just nodded like it was any other morning, like I still belonged there. That told me something. Whatever happened last night, it wasn't formal, it wasn't broadcast. I rode the elevator up, slow and empty, to the 5th floor. Opened my laptop at the same spot I always sat. Middle row, third desk from the left, across from the fake ficus nobody watered. Terminal booted, VPN routed. I ran a quick check on the cert chain tied to my internal account. My credentials weren't just disabled, they were invalidated. Every system signature I'd ever used had been revoked. Not flagged, not temporarily paused, purged, as if I were never there. I'd seen termination cleanups before. They usually leave a trail, deactivation logs, HR flags, ticket timestamps. Mine had none of that, just a full scrub. And the kicker? They backdated the deletion. According to the system, I'd been gone for 3 weeks. 3 weeks. That's how far they tried to rewrite me out of history. I wasn't fired, I was erased. So I did what any system architect with an ounce of foresight and a grudge would do. I ran the tracker. The old one. Ghostware. Originally written as a proof of concept, then quietly improved, repackaged, and stored on an encrypted USB drive I kept on my keychain. It doesn't modify anything. It doesn't ping or flag. It doesn't even show up in admin logs unless you know the exact hash signature to look for. It just watches, records, observes where credentials flow, what doors open, what changes happen in the dark when no one's watching. Like a black box for a digital crash that hadn't happened. Yet. It took less than 10 minutes for the first hit to come back. A profile cloned using my old structure, but routed through a temporary contractor ID. A ghost of me wearing a different name. I traced it. The access logs were sloppy. Someone using an East Coast time zone, forgetting to spoof the internal clock. Rookie mistake. But that wasn't the real kicker. The real kicker was the IP. It belonged to Alan Purcell, Director of Systems Integration, my former boss, the same one who'd begged me 6 months ago to just make the new pipeline work when the offshore code base fell apart and the execs were breathing down his neck. Alan didn't delete me. Alan replaced me. But he forgot something. You can't just replace the key holder and expect the locks to work the same, especially when the locks were built with fingerprints. I packed up and walked out without touching anything else. No confrontation, no dramatics, just quiet steps down the hallway I'd designed half the sensor triggers for. By noon, the first system would start freezing. They wouldn't even know why, but I would. I was already home when the first text came in. "Hey, is the partner dashboard down for you too?" I didn't reply. Just watched the signal chain light up like a Christmas tree gone sideways. My tracker lit up with silent pings, each one a failure alert they didn't even realize was being mirrored to me. Not system-wide errors, yet. Just the soft choke of processes quietly stalling. The warehouse sync halted first. That alone should have triggered an internal severity 2 notice. But someone, probably Alan, must have silenced alerts to avoid raising eyebrows before their rollout got properly staged. Then came finance. The invoicing API jammed. Their smart scheduler kept retrying until it hit the hard cap, then went dead. Partner dashboard? Blank screen. No load errors, no crash dump, just nothing. Like the lights were on but nobody was home. And that's exactly what it was. Because without my key in the registry, the authentication handshake on those modules was never going to complete, no matter how many contractors Alan cycled through. Every piece of code was pointing upstream, and upstream pointed to me. They could have asked. They could have sent an email, a Slack ping, hell, even a fake apology over coffee. But instead they went silent. Cut me off like a cancer and thought the body would keep breathing. It didn't. What Alan and the rest of them didn't understand, what nobody in that boardroom full of LinkedIn buzzwords ever bothered to read, was that I never designed the infrastructure to be dependent on me as a person. I designed it to be dependent on my signature. There's a difference. People quit. People get promoted. But signatures, they authenticate trust. And mine was required in every critical junction of the adaptive chain, not because I was arrogant, but because the system demanded accountability, and accountability was now frozen solid. I stared at the tracker window on my personal laptop. Each heartbeat showed another subsystem trying to reroute, only to find the secondary path looping back to a null credential. I didn't have to do a thing. Didn't have to trigger anything or deploy some ticking time bomb like in the movies. All I had to do was not exist. And their system, my system, did the rest. I made a cup of coffee and turned my phone to silent. No more texts came in. Whoever realized what was happening would have sprinted straight to Alan. And Alan, bless his denial-ridden little soul, would probably have blamed the offshore team or spun a tale about unexpected legacy code dependencies. But eventually, someone would find the clause, the contract, the handshake schema, and the missing key, the one they deleted. I leaned back in my chair and listened to the silence. Funny how deleting me from their world made it so theirs stopped turning. The official meltdown started around 5:43 p.m. I watched the internal incident report unfold in real time, thanks to a relic webhook I'd set up back when Farroncore still valued redundancy over arrogance. One by one, I saw the flags escalate. Orange, red, dark red. Then the big one, black. Severity 1, critical system failure, followed minutes later by severity 0, emergency. That's not a word Farroncore ever used lightly. You have to earn a severity 0. And they did. With every arrogant assumption and half-read clause, they earned it. By that point, their entire operations layer was compromised. Procurement triggers stopped working, causing cascading purchase order misfires. Shipment coordination tools froze at the validation stage. The sales portal, down. CRM, bricked. Even their smart thermostat API started glitching. Because yes, I had embedded authentication in the energy sync layer after that one winter we lost 40 grand in frozen inventory due to a heating outage no one caught in time. I fixed that. Quietly. Like I fixed everything. Until they deleted me. But here's the kicker. the real ticking bomb they never noticed. Every one of those systems was built on a central processing pipeline that authenticated through my revocable ID. Not my name, not my email, my signature hash. They could remove my name from the directory all they wanted. They could backdate my exit, purge my records, even reassign my job title to some poor contract hire who couldn't spell asynchronous. But unless they had my key, nothing could revalidate the nodes. And they didn't have it, because I'd never given it. That's where clause 7.4b comes in. I remember the look on legal's face when we drafted it 4 years ago. At the time, I was transitioning from internal role to strategic contractor. My idea, cleaner taxes, better control. But I wasn't stupid. I knew how companies worked. One wrong reorg, one new executive with a vision, and suddenly I'd be scapegoated for a system they barely understood. So I added protection. No unilateral overrides permitted without mutual signature on a revocation agreement, notarized and submitted to compliance. It sounded so boring at the time, just legal padding. But that boring clause had become a steel trap, and now it was shut. The moment they deleted my ID without filing that revocation document, the infrastructure locked. Not maliciously, not vindictively, just precisely. Like it was designed to, because it was. And now, no one could override it without violating the contract. I wasn't sabotaging them. They did it themselves. A little after 6, I got a ping from a former colleague, Ellen from Risk. Just a screenshot. One line from an emergency internal chat. Why the hell was there no override key provision? I didn't reply, because there was a provision. They just never asked me for it. Somewhere between the panic in IT and the fire drill board meeting that Friday morning, someone finally dug into the archives and pulled my consulting agreement. I could almost hear the moment legal's eyes landed on clause 7.4b, the paragraph no one remembered, no one respected, and no one ever thought would matter, until it did. 4 years ago, when Farencore reorganized after that round of layoffs, I'd agreed, reluctantly, to shift from full-time to contractor status. They called it a strategic move, said it would give me more flexibility, better rates, autonomy. I called it what it was, convenient headcount reduction with a glossy title. But I didn't argue. I drafted my own version of the agreement and ran it through an IP attorney on the side. Nobody noticed. Alan just wanted my name back on the project timeline, and legal wanted signatures by Friday, so they signed. Clause 7.4b was short, boring, tucked between non-compete language and a section about invoicing frequency. 1 sentence, 19 words. All embedded verification chains remain operational property of the architect unless revoked via notarized dissolution agreement between both parties. At the time, I remember thinking it sounded like overkill, but I'd been burned before. Another company, years back, where I built a full-stack integration system that they locked me out of post-merger and blamed for every bug they didn't understand. That wouldn't happen again. Now, Farencore was realizing what that sentence meant. Because no one had filed any revocation agreement, no one had emailed, no one had called, no one had even acknowledged I was leaving. That's how certain they were I'd just disappear quietly. Just a delete command, a name wiped off a spreadsheet, and 6 years of engineering fades into the void. Only the void didn't comply. The pipeline had rules, legal ones, and the moment they deleted me without mutual sign-off, every embedded module I'd written recognized the absence of my verification as a violation of its own continuity chain. So it stopped authenticating. Not out of malice, not even out of design flaw, out of compliance. My systems were doing exactly what they were designed to do, protect themselves when the terms of trust were breached. The meeting notes from that Friday leaked within hours. An anonymous employee posted a snippet on an internal forum, which someone else screenshotted and sent to me. We're potentially in breach of multiple vendor contracts due to unverifiable infrastructure. Who signed off on this termination? No answer. Because no one had. They hadn't fired me. They hadn't even offboarded me. They just tried to erase me and hoped the system wouldn't notice. But the system was mine. And it noticed. It was Saturday morning when the real storm began, and it didn't start from inside Farencore. It started with a client ping. One of our international logistics partners, Fermana Freight, out of Denmark, sent a terse, panicked message to their rep. We're seeing custom sync latency beyond SLA. Where is the fallback token? Except there was no fallback token. That token lived inside a module I'd personally deployed 18 months ago, one that validated against dual custodian hashes. My hash, their hash, and mine had been revoked, unilaterally and unlawfully 3 days ago. No handshake, no fallback. By noon, procurement froze. Their vendor management tool couldn't push contract updates through to the order API, which meant automated reorders stalled. Some departments tried manual uploads. Those failed too, because the new digital ledger Farroncore adopted last year was tethered to the same adaptive signature chain. No signature, no ledger sync. And that's when clients started noticing. Farroncore was a middleware darling, offering those sleek, behind-the-curtain logistics automations that made global shipping look effortless. No one ever saw the gears, but now the gears were grinding. Emails started flying in from Tokyo, Rotterdam, Brisbane. Dashboards were showing timeouts. Shipment confirmations delayed. Some partners saw rejections with scary language. Unauthorized module use, unverifiable handshake. Then came the real kicker. The Customs API, our crown jewel, the one that synced real-time manifest data across 9 jurisdictions, went completely dark. For 3 hours, nothing moved. That's not an outage, that's a catastrophe. Trucks sat in holding zones. Freight containers stayed locked. Perishables spoiled on tarmacs. And someone at the EU's Office of Trade Integrity sent a compliance breach warning to Farroncore's legal inbox with a little red flag in the subject line. They'd violated Article 5, unverifiable data in a licensed transport chain. Meanwhile, I was sitting on my porch in Tennessee, sipping black coffee out of a chipped mug that said "World's Okayest Engineer," watching the fog roll over the hills and filing a quiet Form 499 update with the FCC. Change of verification custodian. 3 modules. 3 digital signatures. The chain of custody transferred from Farroncore's internal domain to Lani Site Systems LLC, my LLC, registered 3 years ago. Dormant until now. No press release, no announcement, just one formal submission, a compliance update routed through proper channels. It would be buried in paperwork until Monday, but the system would reflect it immediately. Verification chains updated, custodian status shifted. By the time Farroncore's C-suite noticed, I'd already rerouted the heartbeat pings from all 3 modules to a secure node I controlled. I wasn't hiding it. I wasn't even moving aggressively. But the truth is, when you build a system right, the world doesn't need your permission to notice when it breaks. And Farroncore was breaking. Loudly and publicly. By Sunday night, they'd realized they weren't dealing with a bug, or an outage, or some misfiring automation in a dusty data center. They were dealing with absence, a deliberate, surgical, contractual absence, and they were scrambling. The first email was polite. "Hi, just checking in. Can we hop on a quick call to discuss system continuity?" No mention of the erasure, no apology. Just corporate theater pretending nothing was on fire while the building was clearly smoldering. Then came the calls. From numbers I didn't recognize, then from ones I did. Alan even left a voicemail. His voice sounded smaller than I remembered. "Hey, we may have hit a snag on the partner dashboard. If you could give me a ring?" Like I was just out sick, or maybe stuck in traffic and forgot to hit commit on a Friday deploy. He didn't know how to speak to someone whose name he'd personally deleted. Monday morning, the letter arrived, hand-delivered by a courier in a crisp polo shirt who looked like he didn't want to be there. The envelope was thick, cream-colored, legal letterhead. Inside, 3 pages of desperate professionalism and veiled pleading. "We'd like to formally re-engage your services for system stabilization. Your expertise remains vital. In accordance with your previous engagement, we'd appreciate your prompt response." I didn't respond. My lawyer did. 1 sentence, no emotion, no wiggle room. Our client no longer retains internal obligations, and all architecture governed by Clause 7.4b remains non-transferable. That was it, and that was enough. They didn't try again. Instead, someone must have turned their gaze elsewhere, probably in panic, probably toward whoever could make this problem disappear with money or speed or both. That's when Revora Tech made their move. Late Monday afternoon, they dropped a teaser video on LinkedIn and Twitter. "Coming soon, a new era in adaptive logistics." It was barely 60 seconds long, slick as hell, complete with cinematic transitions and a dramatic piano track. But I knew what I was looking at. The architecture shown in those wireframes, the sequencing pattern, the node negotiation logic they flashed for half a second, it was mine. Not copied, not stolen, rebuilt. Revora had reached out to me 2 months ago, quietly, after seeing what Farrancore was doing to its senior architects. I hadn't said yes then, I hadn't said anything, but I had listened, and I had watched. And when Farrancore made it clear I wasn't a person anymore, just a deleted row in a database, I made a choice. I didn't retaliate, I redirected. The modules I'd built, they weren't portable, but the thinking behind them, the sequencing model, the adaptive signature logic that validated every node without a central bottleneck, that was mine, my ideas, my logic, my DNA. So I started fresh, clean. Revora didn't want code, they wanted vision. And now, with Farrancore melting down from the inside and regulators circling overhead, Revora was gearing up to take their market. Not with lawsuits, not with scorched earth, just evolution. Farrancore tried to delete a person. Instead, they deleted their own future. They booked the executive conference room for 7 a.m. Friday, emergency operations review, full quorum. That alone said everything. Farrancore hadn't used that room before lunch in years, not unless something had already exploded. I wasn't in the room, obviously, but I didn't need to be. People talk, screenshots travel, especially when your entire infrastructure has locked itself behind a key they no longer control, and legal's starting to look at executives like suspects in a heist gone wrong. First came finance. The losses weren't just theoretical anymore. Client refunds, penalties from missed customs windows, SLA violations stacking up like unpaid parking tickets, investors calling for emergency calls. The number they floated, lowball estimate, was 12.7 million. Before the quarter even ended, legal followed. They pulled up the consulting agreement, the clause, the missing notarized revocation document. They laid out the path. By deleting my ID without that signed mutual agreement, the company had not only violated the contract, they'd invalidated their own operational license to use key portions of the infrastructure. No recourse, no override. Not without breaching federal and international compliance. Then came IT. The new systems manager, some poor guy I'd never met, barely 3 weeks into the job, stood like a deer in headlights and read from his notes. We've attempted 4 separate restoration methods. None successful. All node pipelines require validation against the original dual key sequence, and the missing key belonged to the external architect. Without reinstating her profile and signature chain, we cannot revalidate system integrity. The room fell silent. And that's when the CEO leaned forward, steepling his hands like every cliche CEO does when the house is on fire, but they want to look calm about it. Who, he asked, voice low and hard, authorized the removal of her profile? Silence again. Then a rustle of movement, and from the far end of the table, the CTO, Alan Purcell himself, spoke, barely louder than a whisper. We thought she was optional. It hung there. Optional. Like 6 years of infrastructure was a plugin you could toggle off and forget. Optional. Like an architect's identity was a formality, not a foundation. No one defended him. No one backed him. Someone, I don't know who, stood up and walked out. Because it wasn't a bug, wasn't sabotage, wasn't a rogue contractor or cyber attack or even an HR misstep. It was assumption. Entitlement wrapped in laziness, wrapped in blind confidence. They thought I was just another name on a spreadsheet, just another vendor. They never imagined I had the keys. They never thought I'd use them. And the best part? I didn't. The system did. Monday morning came with no alarms, no explosions, just a quiet update on a website that most people probably missed, unless they knew exactly what they were looking for. Revora Tech's homepage refreshed at 8:02 a.m., new color scheme, slightly updated logo, and beneath it, a single line of text in unassuming gray, powered by Lonnie Site Core, compliance verified. No launch party, no blog post. No press release boasting about new architecture or strategic partnerships. Just a line, like it had always been there, like this was the natural order of things. And maybe it was. The transition had already begun in the background, silently syncing, validating, authenticating across systems that didn't rely on broken trust or erased identities. Just clean code, proper chains, and a core built with precision instead of ego. Meanwhile, Farrancore was still frozen. Internal systems were bottlenecked. CRM still limping. The custom sync hadn't been restored. Another week of cascading failures. Clients were defecting in ones and twos, some quietly, some with stiffly worded termination notices citing operational unreliability. One even thanked me in a private message, said they were relieved to move their business to a platform with ethical infrastructure practices. Farroncore's stock dipped 19-1 by noon. The execs tried to spin it. Transitional turbulence, technical alignment, unexpected contractor shift. But no one bought it. They couldn't even produce a statement that didn't contradict itself. Because you can't explain away a ghost. You can't craft a narrative around someone you refuse to acknowledge existed. Clause 7.4b remained intact, untouched, untouchable. No one challenged it, no one tried. I never posted on LinkedIn, never gave an interview, never threatened litigation. I didn't need to. The infrastructure told the story better than I ever could. Every locked node, every rejected handshake, every halted pipeline, it all pointed to the same thing. Their erasure had worked, but not the way they wanted. They erased me from their records, their systems, their hallway chatter. And in doing so, they erased the very core of what kept them running. I didn't fight them, didn't beg, didn't rage. I built something better and let their silence devour itself.